Hey, Matt Lawton is in our house today. Let's get it. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say? Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube today, we have a very special episode for you. I mean, it's going to be special audio too, but this is rolling live, which is a lot of fun. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to get through this stuff real quick here. Feel free to be active in the chat, in the comments. We'll hang out there, answer some questions if you have some good ones. Also, too, if you want questions answered during the 7th inning stretch on the regular show, don't hesitate to ask. Send them to me on Twitter at Brennan_Warren at Locked On Twins. DMs are open, and after pretty much every game, you can find the Locked On Twins Breathless Post-Game Minute. And always listen to the end, because that's when I share the stat that you are not going to hear anywhere else. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Create an account on the Gametime app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Gosh, I'm messing her up today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Twins, Red Sox, 6:40 on Tuesday evening. It's Bailey Ober and Cutter Crawford. You can get every pitch of the Twins hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app with Corey and Danny just by searching Twins. Now that we got all that stuff out of the way, Mr. Matt Lawton, it is so exciting to have you on this show.
Oh, man, nice. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, you bet. We had AJ Pierzynski on, I want to say last week. We've got Marty Cordova coming on when he gets back from Spain.
Oh, wow. Which,
yeah, right. Real nice little trip he's on. And in the meantime, we're going to talk to you about a little bit of everything. First and foremost, for Twins fans who watched you coming up, what are you up to now? Because, you've been out of the game for a little while. AJ's doing some video stuff. I don't know what Marty's doing yet. We'll get to that when he's on the show. But what keeps you busy these days?
Man, a whole lot of nothing, man. I'm just hanging out with the wife. My kid's graduated now, so he's back at home. Just hanging out with those guys and, just living life, man. Traveling a little bit here and there. I don't go to Spain or nothing like that, like Marty is. But I hit a couple different places from here and there.
You ever get back to Minnesota at all for any reason?
I sure had, man. I need to get up there. I've been saying every summer that I'm going to come up there and see the new stadium.
Yeah.
I want to come check that out, see the boys play and stuff like that. But hadn't made my way back up there just yet.
You think it would be a little weird, having played in the Metrodome all those years, to come up and see not only what's on the Metrodome grounds right now, which is US Bank Stadium, but an entirely different stadium, and just kind of think about, that was what they were pushing for back when you guys were playing. No doubt. To kind of see that come to fruition. Would that be weird for you? Would that be cool for you? Or would you be kind of ambivalent?
I think it'd be pretty cool, man. Just seeing the new stadium and just seeing. I don't know if I want to come up during the months of April and stuff. I'm sure it gets pretty cold.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of cold days up there in Minnesota. So, but right now it's probably perfect timing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's upper 80s. Might touch 90 today, so it's plenty warm.
Good.
Which I'm sure you recall. I want to take you all the way back to the 1991 draft, because you were part of what was a loaded class for the Twins. Now, for people who watch the MLB draft, which actually is coming up here pretty soon,
yes,
a big class, or a really great class, might be 5 or 6 guys making the big leagues and having nice careers, or even just making the big leagues. So right. That year, the Twins took David McCarty, Scott Stahoviak, LaTroy Hawkins, who I'll ask you about later, Brad Radke, Pedro Grifol, who, if I'm not mistaken, is the manager of the White Sox right now.
That's right.
And then in the 13th round, Mr. Matt Lawton, one of, I think, 4 guys who made the big leagues from that round. What was that process like? 13th round, you get a phone call, you get a FedEx letter. What was it like then, before, we weren't doing the cell phone thing quite yet?
Yeah. I think I got a phone call at home, and it was really exciting. I was sitting around all day just waiting to go, because they told me, you might go anywhere from, 1 to 10. I mean, of course, 10 to to whatever. And I was like, man, hopefully I can get in that top 10. But I didn't make it, but I was right outside of it, and I was really excited when the Twins drafted me.
Was there any influence from the fact that your brother played in the big leagues? I mean, did you have any different expectations, or did that shape your feeling about the draft process and the early pro process at all? I mean, did you lean on him for information or anything?
Oh yeah, he laid the blueprint for me, man. He like I said, he went in the 6th round to the Mets, and he pretty much told me all what I should expect. Once I got into the minor leagues, he just told me what I had to do. Try to put up numbers, try to advance through the system as quick as possible, and everything worked out pretty well.
So I remember hearing about, when you first came up, how you had a brother who had played in the big leagues briefly and had been in the minors for a while. In fact, your careers did not overlap by that much. I think he was out by 92. His 1985 season, though, is one of the craziest seasons I've ever seen, swiping 111 bags and being caught 8 times. So I knew he was fast. I had heard he was fast.
Yes, sir.
But that fast, that efficient, and then to be in a place long enough to steal that many bases. I mean, there's just so many things that had to be just an incredible season.
Oh, no doubt. I remember Mr. Ryan would always tell me, man, if I could combine you and your brother, I would have one heck of a player. Because my brother couldn't hit. He could hit okay, but he wasn't the hitter that I was. But of course, he had a pretty good arm, and he had really good speed. So, like I said, if we could have combined and been one player, we could have made a lot of money.
Yeah, no question about it. So 13th round, you got to kind of prove yourself. It's not like, David McCarty got drafted ahead of Manny Ramirez. That's kind of something that sits with him, I'm sure, to this day. Or right around Manny Ramirez. I don't know if he was before or after, but it was right around there. The 13th round pick, you got to kind of force yourself onto the radar, I'm sure. Obviously they like you enough to draft you, but you have a really strong season at Fort Wayne in low A. Is that kind of when you felt like you were on the radar? Was it Fort Myers the next year? I mean, the numbers, 400 on base percentage, just incredible.
No doubt. I think when I first realized I could compete with all the good guys, it wasn't Fort Wayne. I wasn't playing every day, but I put up some pretty good numbers, and I figured I'd be on my way to playing on the everyday role on the next year in Fort Myers, and luckily I got a chance to do that, and the Twins put me on the 40-man roster a year after that. So everything, man, it happened really fast, but it was definitely good for me.
A random aside, is Gus Gandarillas the best name of a player that you ever played with?
Oh, it's got to be right up there at the top, man. Gus is
a
cool guy too. Great dude, man. Funny guy. He was a good guy to be around.
Yeah, and that was a team that had more pitching that made the big leagues. This season was incredible for LaTroy Hawkins, and we're going to talk again, like I said, about Hawk a little more here in a bit. But 15 wins, again, to be somewhere long enough to win 15 games, 2.06 ERA, more than a strikeout per inning when that wasn't that much of a thing.
Right.
I bet having a front row seat to that was special.
Oh, yeah. I would love to see LaTroy when he took them out, man. I knew that night we had a great chance to win the game. That year in Fort Wayne, he was pretty masterful, man. He was on. He every night when he went out there, he had his good stuff working, and like you said, he put up a great year.
Yeah, he ascended very, very quickly. So you come up with LaTroy, and I think LaTroy had one of the most incredible careers, not only in longevity, but the thing that I keep coming back to is his age 29 season was actually 28, would have been 2001. So the last year you guys were together in Minnesota. Going into his age 29 season, he had a 5.78 ERA for his career. Even if you add in that 2002 year where he was really good, career ERA 5.38. If someone told you that guy was going to play another 14 or 15 years, what would your reaction have been at that moment?
Well, pitchers, they tend to hang around. They find a niche, and I think once LaTroy moved to the bullpen, start closing a little bit. I think that was his niche. He got in there and got comfortable, and he's such a great guy. People love to have him around as well. He's definitely a mentor to a lot of young kids, and he's continuing to do that today. He's working with a lot of kids, and putting the kids in the right direction. And it definitely didn't surprise me that he went out and played as long as he did. He's had that rubber arm; he could throw all the arm never hurt. So it definitely, he's a great athlete. kept himself together, always ate well. So he had everything to have a long career. He did everything right.
Great. Yeah, no, I tend to agree. Let's take a quick second, talk about Gametime. We talked about the Gametime app at the outset. Again, it's just if you're stressed about buying tickets and you need to get them last minute, go to Gametime, the app, or gametime.co, not .com. Look through the app, and there's events in your area. If Minneapolis is your location, you can find things at the Guthrie. You can find things at the, anywhere you can imagine outside of even Target Field, US Bank Stadium, any sort of event you want to go to. And they also, too, have this thing called the Gametime Guarantee where you get the best price no matter what. So if you find a comparable ticket someplace else, same row, same section, they'll give you 110% of the difference. So you can see a picture of where you're going to sit and give you an idea of your sight lines. Don't want to be like at Old Tiger Stadium where you'd end up sitting behind some of those beams under the overhang. I bet you have some memories playing at Tiger Stadium. But download the Gametime app. You can snag the tickets without stress. And use code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today, last minute. Tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, you don't think I would let you get out of here without talking about TK, right?
Oh, my God. No, my guy.
So you played with, I don't know if you remember, but Greg Olson for about a half an hour back in like 97, right-handed reliever, mustache, beard, whatever. So he and I hosted this podcast for a while, and I hope we get it going again, called That 90s Baseball Pod. And basically the concept was I grew up watching baseball in the 90s. 90 to 99 was a really fun era for me. And I don't know that the game ever changed as much as it did in those 10 years. Because you go back to the beginning of the 90s, and it was your fast guy leads off, and your shortstop can't hit. And by the end of the 90s, they're starting to figure out on-base guys at the top of the order. You got your truck drivers in the middle driving home runs. Your shortstop, if he can't hit, hits ninth. If he can hit, is A-Rod or Jeter, Garcia Parra. Mm-hmm. Game changed a lot in that era. So we had that show, and we had one guest in our history. So we had Buck Showalter. We had Paul Molitor. We had all kinds of guests from that era. We had one guest who did not do Zoom with us, who did not have a cell phone, and we had to call a landline on Skype. I bet you can guess who that guest was, because we were just talking about him.
Wow.
TK.
TK. Oh, yeah.
No cell phone. No cell phone. So we had to call him on Skype on his home phone, and get this. It's already hard enough to dial a phone number because it's on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
He had one of those solicitor. If you're a solicitor, you must hang up. Otherwise, press 1 to talk to whoever you're trying to call.
Right.
And the problem is that screen disappeared for pushing digits. So I'm losing my mind. Like, this is the biggest interview I've had. Maybe Terry Ryan, like 5 years before that, was my biggest interview.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited. I grew up watching these teams, and I might lose him. And I don't think he's the kind of guy who has a lot of patience for that kind of stuff. So,
none.
So I was not loving the idea that I might not get TK, but we got him. So how did he handle you as a young player? Because I've heard stories that he could be difficult. Guys like Todd Walker come to mind. AJ talked about, and I brought it up, that catching situation. Basically every catcher before Mauer, it was like 6 of them at once, kind of converging and kind of sorting them out. How did TK handle you as a young player?
You know what, TK was? He was cool with me because I wasn't a top round guy. Those first round guys, those are the guys that he get. He was hard on those guys. I was one of those underdog type guys. So he kind of had a lot more patience with me than I thought he would, and he was hard on me at times, but it was definitely well needed. Because he pushed the right buttons, and he definitely made me a good player. And I always said to tell him thank you, man, because he taught me a lot about the game of baseball.
Would you call it tough love?
Tough love. I mean, yeah. I would definitely say him and Terry Crowley was
hitting coach.
He was a hitting coach, and that I don't know why, but they liked me for some odd reason. And like I said, they gave me a lot more chances than I probably deserved, and I definitely appreciate those guys.
So your first big league plate appearance comes hitting in front of Kirby Puckett? Was that, I mean, granted, maybe didn't grow up a Twins fan, obviously, but you had been in the organization long enough to know what a big damn deal Kirby Puckett was. You pinch hit for, I think, Pat Mears, if I'm not mistaken. What's that like, though? You are in the on-deck circle, Puckett's in the hole, but he's going to bat behind you. Any kind of butterflies? What's that first plate appearance like? Because you came in as a sub.
No doubt. I was so nervous, man. I told everybody. I told my family, it's like, man, the first fastball I see, I'm getting after it. I'm jumping on that joker. Man, guy threw me a fastball right down the middle. I was so nervous, so shaky. I couldn't even swing. I ended up taking it. I was like, man, you got to be kidding me. I stepped out. Of course, we didn't have the pitch clock back in those days, so you can step out and take your time. And I think it was the next day, though. The next day, I kind of got it myself, and I got my first big league hit, and it was definitely pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think that TK, and maybe I'm remembering wrong, I feel like he liked to get guys' feet wet, like in the game before, or he'd maybe ease guys in. Also, too, we had Jeff Rebele on the show, the other show, and he talked about, too, how it was a little easier for him to play for TK because the expectations weren't there, and he just did his job every day, and that's really all TK asked of you.
No doubt. Jeff Rebele and Chip Hale was his favorites.
Yes.
I don't know if he kind of saw himself in those two guys, but he would definitely – those are his – he took care of those guys. I mean, they were two good guys that played the game the right way. And we'd always mess around with them, say they wanted to be like TK, because they say the same stuff that TK would say. And, it was just cool just to be around those guys when they got together.
Well, and those guys were like the patron saints of utility Twins. You got Al Newman before, and then before you get to Punto, you got Denny Hawking, who was a legend.
Yeah.
I kidded with him that he was the best number 7 in Twins history when we had him on. He thought that was pretty good.
Yes, sir.
So your next afternoon, you have your first big league hit. Now, Mike Myers, wasn't he a nasty lefty, if I recall, kind of a situational guy?
He was. He wasn't as nasty as he was later in his career. Later in his career, he started to throw side off. When I got my first hit off of him, he was over the top. More conventional style, and I was glad to get that over with. I think once I got my first hit, the game started to slow down a little bit, got a little easier, and went on to have a pretty good September.
Yeah, the Twins have a history of guys having strong Septembers with their call-ups, and it doesn't always mean they're going to have a big career. Glenn Williams, Tommy Watkins. Actually, Watkins is the third base coach now. Josemiel Pinto, Chris Parmalee. You could go on for days, but one thing that September is known for, and it's the night that you hit your first big league homer, was the Kirby Puckett situation with Dennis Martinez.
Yes.
What do you remember from that night? Not that I suspect you want to talk about it too much, because it's obviously a sore spot for anybody who was in the building. But I wasn't watching that night. I was 9 years old, and for whatever reason, I missed the game. I used to watch them every single one. Right. But my mom saw the highlights, and she said, I was glad I wasn't watching.
No doubt. It was just nasty, man. Kirby was in, and Dennis Martinez threw a little sinker running up and in on him, and man, Kirby just didn't get out of the way. He got him really good. It was a nasty shot. And I remember that, like I said, I hit my first home run, and usually on ESPN, they always show everybody's first home run. Mm-hmm. But that night, it was more Kirby Puckett getting hit in the jaw type thing, and it kind of took over ESPN, and my home run was put on the back burner.
Yeah, no, I suppose part of it is like you want that shine because you've played your whole life for that home run, but at the same time too, that is the franchise, and so your attention is kind of divided there. And then the next spring, I mean, how much did it rock the organization for him to be done? Because I mean, 96, I know you guys weren't going to be, world beaters, but you'd put together a pretty nice roster. You got out and got Molitor. I think Greg Myers was going to catch. He might have been there 95, actually, so forget that. But they had added some talent, and then they had young guys who could throw hard. LaTroy comes to mind. What was the vibe like when you guys figured out it was like, oh, man, Kirby's probably done?
Man, I'll never forget. I was coming into the complex, and Kirby and the doctor was driving out. And I was like, I wonder where Kirby's going. And that day, it's cut down day. So I was sitting in my locker for sure, like, man, I'm about to get sent down to AAA, AA, whatever I might go. And just sitting there, and time goes by, and it's almost time to get dressed. I'm like, man, I better get dressed. Maybe I'm not getting sit down. And then later on, you hear that, Kirby couldn't see out of one eye.
Mhm.
Even at that time, I didn't think it was going to be something serious. But as time went on, the news didn't get any better. Figured out he had glaucoma, and I was on the opening day roster that year. I was the guy that actually replaced Kirby, and I was like, man, this is. I get a hit. He'd run up and down the dugout.
Yeah,
I'm Wally Pipp. Matt Lawton about the Wally Pipp.
Well,
he was making a big deal, but he was still fun to be around. He was still had that, like charisma. He brought so much energy to the game, and then it was just sad to see that he, because actually I backed the story up. I think the night before he said he couldn't see out of one eye. I want to say he hit a homer straightaway center. Yep. And then the next day, he couldn't see. It just all happened so fast, man.
Yeah, I think they said he had 2 hits off Maddox around that time too in spring training.
Right. He's swinging the bat really well.
Strange. So were you? I think was it still 25-man rosters then? Were you the 25th man basically, or did you? Yeah. So you really did that roster spot really did open up for you.
It opened up. I mean, if Kirby didn't have glaucoma, I probably wouldn't have. I don't even know if I've ever would have made it. I just got an opportunity there and tried to make the most of it.
So you played a lot of right field in Minnesota. You moved around a bunch and then moved around later in your career. I think I saw you played a bunch of left too. Obviously there was a time when I think Jock was playing center and Torrey was playing a corner, and then they flip-flopped. Was right field your best spot, or was that just kind of where you fit at the time?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of where I fit. Like you said, Torrey and Jock, those guys were really fast and cover a lot of ground. Wasn't that much ground for me to cover over and right, so
yeah,
a little easier for me. And I didn't, of course I didn't have a right fielder's arm, but I could get rid of, playing infield all those years, I can catch the ball, get rid of it pretty quick. So I could, kind of got by with that.
Well, and you could use the turf to your advantage. I think Jock did that more than anyone, where he'd skip it on the turf and it wouldn't lose as much oomph as if it was on grass, for instance. Right. How long did it take before you felt comfortable playing the baggy, like the right field fence and that corner? A lot of guys could hit triples down there, even though it wasn't a big area. How long did it take you to feel real good about playing there?
It took me really long because when I first came up, I remember going out there with Jerry White. We get there early in the like around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and man, he'd be out there hitting us balls all kind of ways. We got pretty comfortable with that outfield pretty quick.
Nice. There was a time when the Twins also too, and you played a lot of these years, where the All-Star game representative rule of every team having a rep played heavily. Ron Coomer goes one year and a few other guys where if it was, if the rule didn't exist, those guys may not have made it. But you got to represent the Twins in 2000. Right. What was that like? I mean, obviously it's got to be a big honor, but at the same time too, is it just kind of surreal? You play against these guys, although NL it's less so with the interleague, but it's got to be kind of surreal to represent your team at the All-Star game, right?
It was definitely surreal being in the same clubhouse as guys like you said, Manny Ramirez, Derek Jeter. Those guys, man. You play against them and you're like, oh man, okay. But then to be in the same clubhouse and be on the same team, I thought that was pretty cool.
And at Turner Field, besides, which is hard to believe that they've already replaced that stadium.
That stadium I thought was legit, man. It was a great location. I mean, I remember that was a lot of memories of that stadium. We had a lot. It's close to my house. We had a lot of family come down. We had a lot of fun that week.
So I don't know how sensitive of a subject this is going to be, but you come up with all these guys. You're part of the group that saves baseball in Minnesota, and I don't say that lightly. But then you get traded in 2001. Was it hard to depart, knowing what you guys had meant to the city, and also too, the team looked like they could make the playoffs that year. They ended up falling short. Yes. Was that how difficult was that for you on a personal level?
Well, at first, I didn't think it was going to be too difficult, but once I got to New York and got away from the turf, man, so many hits were taken away. So you hit the ball, and a lot of balls I hit to right field would have been off the baggie or over the baggie. It just didn't happen in New York. All wind was always blowing in. It was a little bit tougher. I said, man, I missed the dome. So because you always go to the dome, and you go over on the road, you come home and chop a hit or something. You get an infield hit, you make something happen. But in New York, it didn't come like that. You just had to earn everything you got.
I don't think young fans have an appreciation for the chopper off the plate.
Oh,
that
wow.
would spend about, I don't know, 20 seconds in the air, it seemed like. I think
Oh, yeah.
Christian Guzman made a living out of doing that.
Oh, no doubt, man. He'd have 7 or 8 of those a year. He was
Unreal.
definitely Jack Jones was pretty good at it too. He chopped
Yep.
them off there. I don't know how he did it, man. He chopped them up there so high,
Yep.
get them legs going. He got down that baseline pretty quick.
How hard was it to watch, though, as the Twins kind of go on that 3-year run from 02 to 04? Again, with most of your guys or a lot of your guys, I mean, did part of your heart kind of stay with them, like you're kind of rooting for them, or
Yeah.
was it kind of like, all right, I got to start something new?
No, I was definitely rooting for him. I mean, because I remember coming back to the Dome. Can't remember who they were playing, and the Dome was electric, man. It was the first time you see the Dome like that in the playoffs. I come back watching the game. It was definitely fun to see those guys finally winning. It was a little part of you is like, man, I wish I was out there, but at the same time, you glad those you happy for the guys that's there.
Did you ever know Rick Reed?
Nah, I never really met him. He's the guy I got traded for. That's
right.
All yeah. Yeah.
No, I just didn't know. I mean, because we hear about the trade, and part of it is like, yeah, you go down in history as traded for a guy, but you may not even know him, and especially a league to league trade like that where you'd play that team once every 3 years, and it would be a home and away, and so I mean, I figured you probably didn't even know him.
Well, of course you seen him pitch. I think once I got traded to Cleveland, I think I might have faced him once or twice.
Okay.
Yeah, so got a chance to see him work a little bit.
What was the vibe like with that 2001 team, knowing what was at stake and knowing, again, like, I think what did the Sports Illustrated thing say? The team that saved baseball in Minnesota or something like that. Like, do you take a lot of pride from that? Because I would hope so, but I don't know how you feel about it.
Oh, no doubt, man. It was one of those teams, like I said, that year, because we weren't expecting to do much, of course, every year, but we were winning and got off to a pretty good start. And people started to, of course, rally behind baseball a little bit. And like you said, things definitely turned around for the Twins.
Yeah, no question about it. And that was a team that it was the first winning team I had watched because I started watching the Twins in 93.
Uh-huh.
So coming off 91 World Series, the year you were drafted, 92, they were pretty good, but no wild card. And then from that point on, it was pretty rough until that 2001 season. So that fact that I did not have to grow up watching the Twins and then seeing them leave, especially in light of the North Stars leaving when I was even younger, was really good to see. Before I let you go, and I don't know, one of the things I try to pride myself on is asking questions that you probably haven't been asked too much.
Okay.
How do you think your skill set would be valued in today's game? I feel like if you would have come around 10 years later, the concept of this guy gets on base nonstop, plays a good corner outfield, you did well for yourself in your career, both in terms of stats, money, etc. But I feel like there are players who come up in an era too early or too late, and I feel like maybe a half step too early for you.
I was definitely too early, man. I mean, because I came up with I remember my first year of arbitration. We of course you go there and man, they would compare me to guys like Tim Salmon.
Very different.
Yeah, it was Sammy Sosa. I'm like, man, god dang, because we all play right field.
Yeah.
Like, then it kind of put pressure on me to try to hit homers. In today's game, they don't really care about hitting homers. They want you to get on base and score runs. So I was definitely built for that. If I'd have played in today's game, I would definitely be one of those. I mean, look at Luis Arraez. I mean, of course he hits for average all the time. Yeah. But at the same time, he nobody forces him to hit homers. Right. I think not to say I could have did it as good as him, but if I would have just tried to hit for average and didn't care about the homers, I could have hit for a pretty good average.
What is your overwhelming metronome memory before I let you go? Like what comes back to you when you think of that place? And again, Flattened no longer exists anymore. It's just kind of all in our heads. That's where I had my season tickets when I first got them. I mean, is it still a special kind of place in your heart, even though we all kind of thought it was a dump?
Oh man, I love that place. Like I said, I love playing there.
Nice.
Yeah, I love playing there. I love the walking into that stadium. You had your special way to get in there.
Yep.
I remember sneaking in there to a couple of football games. Because
nice.
The Vikings game, we walked right the same way we would walk into the clubhouse, and we walked right down to the field. Yep. It was definitely pretty cool. By halftime, the security guard was like, "Hey man, you guys aren't supposed to be here, are you?" I was like, "Nah, we had to go back up to our seats." But it was always definitely a cool place to play. And always be dear to my heart.
Yeah, for sure. We'll hang on to you for just 1 second here. Again, Twins Red Sox on Tuesday night, 6:40 p.m. It's Bailey Ober and Cutter Crawford. You can catch every pitch on the Twins hometown broadcast, Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Twins. And again, thanks for making us your first listen every day. If you're an everydayer, check us out tomorrow. We'll have a full breakdown of what we hope is not another soul-crushing loss for this Twins team, which can't seem to get anything going. They could use a Matt Lawton at the top of their lineup right now.
That would be great.
I don't know if the phone is ringing as much as it used to, but I'll put my people in touch with your people and we'll see what happens. You can subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening or watching. Hang out in the comments and send us questions for the 7th inning stretch. Matt, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And people should know I contacted you and you were very quick to get back, quick to set a time. I appreciate that so much.
Oh, man, no problem, man. Like I said, I'm just happy to be able to be on your show, man. It was a good deal.
Yeah, so maybe we'll find a way to have you on again if there's time, if it works out for your schedule. Again, follow us, Locked On Twins, @Brandon_Warren. This is Brandon Warren signing off, saying thank you so much, and don't forget to stop by tomorrow.